7 o'clock, Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DeJohn, Train Station Fitness Show. Co-host in the studio, Dr. Jeremy Webster. We're talking today about being deficient in certain nutrients and how that impacts your life. And you know, I'm going on the other side. We can be suggestive and say how it may impact your life, how it can impact your life. But you and I, especially you, have seen so many people, hundreds of people, maybe even thousands for you, I don't know, where when you're deficient, and you've proven the person is deficient in any nutrient, that there are certain symptoms associated with it. The symptoms we'll discuss today with someone who's deficient in a B complex vitamin can overlap with being deficient in other vitamins. I start the show with that because I don't want people to say, well, George and Dr. Webster said the symptoms I'm experiencing all come from being deficient in vitamin B, regardless of which B, 6 or 12 or whatever. And that's not true.
Right, yeah. One of the things that's really easy to explain, and I'll get into that maybe in the next segment, is why the symptoms are so very diverse when it comes to the B vitamins. And I'll give everybody a clue. It has to do with energy production. Energy is like cash for your cells. You need energy for every single thing that your cell does, and basically everything that your body does. So that's kind of a quick clue as to why the symptoms associated with B vitamin deficiency can be almost anything. Now, certain B vitamins are more associated with certain symptoms, and others are associated with other symptoms, and we'll get into those more specifically later. But it is pretty diverse. And in fact, when I was digging in for this show, I was surprised how many symptoms there were, you know, when you really start listing them and naming them. It's very broad.
So let's talk about some of the symptoms right now, and then we'll let you go. We'll go to a break. But the reason for that is because if you're driving your car, you just get up in the morning, you're about to go out in the gym, you wonder why you're a little sluggish. It may have to do with being deficient in B vitamins. Let's just go through some of the symptoms. You want to rattle some off?
Yeah, here's a short list, not specific to any one B vitamin, but in general. Low energy, depression, anxiety, ADHD can be made worse if you're low in.
So it can be made worse, not necessarily caused, because people might say, okay, well, if I don't have B vitamins, all of a sudden I'm going to be ADD or ADHD. Well, so I'm glad you said it's exacerbated if you're deficient in
Let's just put it this way. If you don't have B vitamins and you can't make energy, then your brain doesn't function right, and you will have problems with attention and hyperactivity.
So it can be a cause?
Let's say it could be a cause, or it could be exacerbating it if there's another cause.
All right.
Insomnia, high blood pressure, abnormal skin and fingernails and tongue and lips. Anemia obviously is oftentimes closely related to certain particular B vitamins.
Don't say obviously, because most people don't know that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Neuropathy, which is just problems, disease of the nerves. Weight gain, because you can't turn fat into energy or sugar into energy efficiently, so it's stored as weight. Dementia.
What's your name?
Dementia.
What's your name?
Right, exactly.
Did that again. Didn't even plan that. Anyway, so coming up next, we'll talk about the complex of B vitamins. Does someone, Dr. Webster, need a B12 shot, or can they take a complex B and gain the energy and the benefits of all the Bs, especially B12? We'll have you answer that question coming up next. Dr. Webster, Train Station Fitness Show, 705 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. 713 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DeJohn, Train Station Fitness Show. My co-host today is Dr. Jeremy Webster. We're talking about people who are deficient, particularly in B vitamins, the whole complex of them. Let's dummy it down for a moment. You don't just have a B vitamin. There are different type of Bs. Run through them real fast.
Okay, it's more or less B1 through 12, although there are some holes in there. There's no such thing as B4. There's no such thing as, depending on which textbook you use, 7 or 8. Biotin is actually now considered B7, and I learned it as B8. Not important.
Right.
And then B10 and B11 don't exist. And those things actually, there was some compounds that were called, those B4, for example, adenosine. There's a compound called adenosine that was called B4 because they discovered it after the first 3 B vitamins.
Okay.
They thought it was a B vitamin. Turns out it's not a B vitamin, so they just scrapped B4. There's no such thing as B4 anymore.
All right.
So B1 through 12, and they all have different properties. You get them from different food sources, and the deficiencies cause different types of symptoms.
Okay, so by now everybody should really know, if you've listened to the show long enough, that there are profound effects, both positive and negative, when you're deficient in vital nutrients. You say, well, what's positive? Maybe we can get into that a little bit later. Today we're discussing the impact of only one set of vitamins needed for our body to stay in a homeostatic state, or get into one if we don't have enough of them. So can you imagine the impact on your body, on your health, and adverse symptoms you can experience by being deficient in another vital nutrient, A, D, E, C, and so on? We're just talking about one complex set of vitamins, and that's the B vitamin. So we're discussing the vital role of vitamin B today. We mentioned earlier some of these symptoms, and I'll do it again if you're just joining us. If you're deficient in the B vitamin complex, not necessarily the entire complex, and I think it's important that I mention what I mean. You don't have to be deficient in all of the Bs to experience some of these symptoms. It can be only one B vitamin that you're deficient in, and the other Bs are actually balanced, where you can experience low energy, depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, insomnia, high blood pressure, abnormal skin and fingernails, which, by the way, I have had for quite a while. We thought it was zinc, and I was low in zinc. My zinc is fine, and I take good B, but we still don't know why my fingernails have these ridges on them. And I've been tested, but I don't know what's going on in either. I don't think you do either.
Well, we haven't gotten to the bottom of it.
We haven't gotten to the bottom of it. Anyway, anemia, neuropathy, weight gain, and dementia. All of these can be attributed to being deficient in B vitamins. And again, not necessarily all of them. So what causes people to be deficient in either one or all of B vitamins? Let's talk about causes.
Okay, refined food would be one of the big.
What's refined food? Are we talking only ice cream and only cookies?
No, any food that's made with flour or sugar that's been refined down. So let's take a brown rice. Brown rice is how it comes out of the field. If you refine it, grind it, bleach it, so that it's white rice is a refined version of brown rice. White flour is a refined version of whole wheat flour or whole wheat.
Right, but we don't even need wheat.
We don't need wheat, but when you eat the refined version, you're still getting all of the sugar from the grain.
Right.
But you're not getting the nutrients that were in the grain originally. You're not getting the fiber, you're not getting the magnesium and iron, and you're not getting the B vitamins. So when you consume a refined food, a refined sugar or a refined grain, your body has to convert that sugar into energy. Well, it needs B vitamins to convert sugar into energy. So if you're consuming all this sugar, no B vitamins along with it, you're robbing the B vitamins that are in your tissues. Your body will pull the B vitamins out of your tissues to try to process that refined food that you just ate. In other words, you're depleting yourself of the stores of your B vitamins, as well as the other nutrients that also come into play in energy production.
So here's my question. You got a fatty. All they do is eat fast food. They don't exercise. They're not aware of the way they treat themselves, although they need to do some exercise in their mind, and maybe they can change a couple of things in their diet, but they don't recognize they need a huge overhaul. So that person is most likely going to be severely deficient in B vitamins. How do you rob the body of B vitamins when you don't really have them?
Well, you rob them until they're gone, and then you start getting these symptoms that we've been talking about. And that person's going to have a lot of difficulty. That's the person that starts exercising and can't lose weight.
Right.
Because if you don't have the B vitamins, how do you make your body fat turn into energy? You make it with B vitamins.
Okay, so before we get into that, because that's really the meat of the show, some of the other things, and I interrupted you because it really makes sense for the people who have that type of diet. Some of the other things that make us deficient in B vitamins are what?
Stress. Stress is a really common one.
Stress goes back to refined food because you're stressing the body.
It could be, but it could also be purely emotional stress.
Well, I know that, but what I'm saying is, let's look. I'm trying to kind of tie this together.
Okay.
We have stress, which is related to having refined foods. We have stress, which is related to consumption, too much alcohol. Stress, emotions, right?
Sure. let's just leave it the refined foods as a category, alcohol consumption as a category, and let's say mental stress.
We can do that,
Mental
but hold
stress
on
by
one second.
itself.
I want to show people the tie-ins of the tree, if you will, of
Sure.
the branches of stress. You have stress, then you have gluten sensitivity,
Yeah.
which we'll get into in a little bit. You have stress and medications because it causes stress.
Yeah.
Stress and gastric bypass, stress and low stomach acid. Okay, and then stress in anything that you're allergic to that causes inflammation. So all of that is stress. Anytime you're under chronic stress, you're robbing yourself of B vitamins. Now, let's make all of these subcategories. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. All the things that you just said, gluten intolerance, alcohol, refined foods, medication, they're all things that contribute directly to B vitamin deficiency. Now let's take emotional stress, just purely mental emotional stress as a subcategory. When you're under stress, your body responds with a stress response, and that's supposed to make you ready to run or fight for your life, the fight or flight response. So what you do is you trigger your liver to release blood sugar so you can make energy out of that sugar, and hopefully you can survive the attack, the event, the reason survival is the reason why we have this stress response. So just think about what I just said. You're releasing sugar and trying to make energy out of it. To convert sugar into energy requires B vitamins. So if you're chronically under stress,
right,
you're chronically making high cortisol levels, you're chronically using up all of your spare B vitamins to try to make energy out of that excess sugar that you just released.
So I'm going to bring this up now because it segues into it perfectly, and I saved my point for later in the show, but it's perfect now. If we supplement, and this goes for just about any supplement that makes you healthy, but for the purposes of today's show of B vitamins, if we supplement with a B vitamin, and it says to take two capsules per day with food, let's say, but you're under chronic stress, the amount that is suggested for you to take is not true.
Right.
And I'll go further to say, even specifically for that day. So someone goes and gets tested, they come, you test them, and you tell them, okay, look, you need to take 3 per day, not 2. But the next day, God forbid, you have a car accident, there was a death in your family, and we just create more stress. You don't need 3, maybe you need 5.
You're right. Good point, and it is day to day, just like you said. These are water-soluble vitamins,
right,
George. So day to day, if you take in more than you need, you will wash those out. As long as you have healthy functioning kidneys, you get rid of excess B vitamins almost completely. There are a couple exceptions, and we'll talk about those when we get to those particular B vitamins.
Yeah.
But you do need to regulate that almost on a daily basis. So yeah, if you eat a bunch of excess processed food that day, you might need more B vitamins than if you ate a big salad that day. Excess stress that day, excess medication that day. Yeah, all of these contribute to you depleting your B vitamins for that day. So
Can you overdose on B vitamins?
Yes and no. Some of them, no. There's no toxic limit to a lot of the B vitamins.
But a complex, because you know
well,
the B vitamin I take is a complex of B.
In general, no. There's a few people that can't get rid of pyridoxine, which is vitamin B6, so they end up with excess B6. Most people, now, I want people to know this. I can't think of a single episode in my own clinic where I've had any one of my patients develop B6 toxicity. I do have a colleague, though, that had a patient coming in, burning hands and fingers, burning toes, and they found out that it was just too much B6 added to all of her supplements, and she had pyridoxine poisoning. But it's really rare. Most people can take an infinite amount of any of these things, and they just get rid of any excess.
So if somebody's feeling extra stressed that day, is it safe to say, on the radio specifically, that they can double the amount that's recommended on the bottle if it's a good B complex vitamin, a B?
In general, yes. So in general, yes. I wouldn't double every single supplement you have,
no,
because
a
lot of other supplements have B6 provided along with it, because it helps as a cofactor in so many other processes. So as just a B complex, yeah, you can usually double up on that on a stressful day and have no problem. Now, one thing I would want to caution, the other one we have problem with is niacin. If it's straight niacin, I don't recommend that at all. And we'll get into what different types of supplements and which ones are better and which ones are worse. But straight niacin is one that I would avoid completely.
And which B is that?
That's B3.
Okay.
And there
what do you mean you'd avoid it completely?
I would avoid it completely because there are other forms. Niacin itself,
Right.
niacin is the form that I would avoid. Niacinamide or nicotinamide is the form that I would take. It's non-flushing and it doesn't tend to have the liver damaging properties.
I thought we wanted the flushing of niacin.
No.
We don't want flushing.
The flushing niacin is not good. No, you don't want to take a vitamin that makes you flush. It also causes cardiac arrhythmias and liver damage. We don't want that.
So now most MDs will tell people with cholesterol issues to have niacin, and you want the flushing.
It lowers cholesterol levels because it damages your liver, which is where you make the cholesterol.
Right. We don't want to damage the liver. We don't want to not make cholesterol because it's responsible.
The studies are clear. You can lower your cholesterol with niacin. It doesn't reduce your risk of heart attack or stroke at all, but it gives you all the damage that's involved with it.
Okay, and I've known about niacinamide, but if I had two in my hand, and I've never researched this, it's only through hearing other people talking about it, particularly a couple of MDs, that you wanted the flushing. So I just took it for face value and never really. It's not like I recommend it to anybody, but I thought niacin was good for us. So you're saying it is, but niacinamide.
Right. Yeah. If you want to have liver failure with low cholesterol, then take niacin.
All right.
That's great.
So coming up next, let's talk about, and we'll do this briefly because we have a lot of other stuff to talk about with the B vitamins, particular ones. I want to discuss people who get B12 shots. Do they really need them? Is there a way around that? So maybe their body's not absorbing it or whatever is going on. We'll also discuss alcohol, medication. We don't have to get into gluten sensitivity. I know it's a big deal, but just if you're allergic to a food or a nutrient, we'll do it fast. We'll do that stuff, and then get into more of the specifics about B vitamins. And then where do you get B vitamins? Do you have to supplement to get proper B vitamins, or can you do it through food? Is there a combination of both that work as a happy family together? We'll talk more with Dr. Webster. Coming up next at 726 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket.
Coming up this afternoon at 2, it's Race Week with B. Rich Phillips. Full rundown of last weekend's NASCAR stop at
1310 The Ticket. George DeJohn Train Station Fitness Show. Here with Dr. Jeremy Webster. We're talking about being deficient in B vitamins in particular. This show will be loaded today on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com, enter 21-day body makeover. And then there's a filter icon you click, and then once you do that, upload date. So it gives you the latest shows. It also filters out to my Facebook page. So if you're one of my Facebook friends, it'll be on there.
So anybody wants to get tested, they can call me, 972-735-0707. We can do all kinds of tests to see if you're deficient in B vitamins, as well as a bunch of other nutrients, and just isolate your needs.
So we left you off with a couple of things to absorb. One of them is, before we get into B12 shots, is let's discuss some of the causes of, and we'll finish this up, being deficient in certain B vitamins, if you can do that. Because I don't know if so let's talk about alcohol now. Does alcohol and certain other causes here create a deficiency in across the board in B vitamins, or particular ones? And if it could be particular ones, mention them for what I'll rattle off. Alcohol, what does it do?
Alcohol across the board, but really strongly depletes you in thiamine, which is B1, and it can drive you to the point where there's something called Wernicke-Korsakoff's disease. It's where you don't have enough B1 thiamine in your brain, and your brain just goes to mush. You get memory problems, and you can do permanent neurological damage. So
really?
That's why, if you ever notice a really bad alcoholic, they seem fine, and then all of a sudden they're not anymore. Like when they get old and they've drank way too much for way too long, then their brain just turns to mush. And even when they're sober, they just have no brain function, it doesn't seem like.
So what do you think Corby's got about another year or two on the radio? That he doesn't know Mike Reiner? I love Corby.
So alcohol also depletes magnesium. Magnesium is a mineral which is required for thiamine binding, and so that just goes to show how these things all play together.
But when we talk about alcohol, let's help people for a moment, because they're going to be a little confused. They see all these reports that say a glass of wine a day is good for the blood and so forth. And are we talking about a glass of wine? Are we talking about hard alcohol, some liquor? How many drinks? All of that. What qualifies a person who becomes deficient in this one supplement that'll affect them in their future?
Too much is too much. And too much for you might be 2 or 3 glasses. It might be 4 or 5 glasses. It depends. If you eat a bunch of refined food and you're under a lot of stress and you're taking a lot of medication, you might not be able to tolerate that much alcohol on top of that before you get severe B vitamin deficiency. If you're really, really healthy and you take a multivitamin and you eat a lot of greens and a lot of good animal products to get all your vitamins, you might be able to handle a lot more alcohol before you become B vitamin deficiency due to the alcohol. Now, the alcohol is still not going to be great for you when you get above about 2 drinks a day. And it doesn't matter whether it's 2 drinks of vodka, beer,
just every day,
wine. Your liver only has a finite ability to process alcohol before it becomes very toxic.
Okay.
But that's a little bit unrelated to B vitamins.
And when you say, and we're not going to get into this, I just want to blanket this for a moment. When you say a good B vitamin, we're not talking about Centrum, and we're not talking about one a day, and we're not talking about Flintstones, nor are we talking about Gummy Bear multivitamins. I've met people recently who say, oh, they love their Gummy Bear multivitamins, and these are girls who are in their latter 20s. And I just want to hit myself in the head and say, just bang my head against the wall. Seriously. I didn't realize marketing worked that well.
I know.
It makes us sheeple. We just follow what everybody says. Nobody thinks for themselves anymore. All right, there's my tangent.
So let's talk about. I've got 4 bullet points on supplementation. If you want to talk about that,
not yet.
You want to talk about food
not
first?
Yet. We can talk. We don't have to talk about why the deficiencies are caused anymore. Okay, we've talked about the deficiencies. We've talked about some of the side effects. But B12 shots.
Okay.
People who are taking B12 shots. Who wants to have a needle? Why do you need that? Do you need that, or can we get B12 in another way and absorbed just as well as someone who takes a B12 shot?
Well, no, you can't get it absorbed just as well, but you can get it in other ways. B12 is required for your blood cells to be formed properly. When you're low in B12, your blood cells you can become anemic, which means you don't have enough red blood cells or enough hemoglobin, which is what transfers oxygen to your tissues. So your red blood cells become too large, they blow up, and you have all these problems with your red blood cells. So you don't make energy. You also can do permanent neurological damage. People with burning and pain in their hand and weakness, oftentimes it's because of a B12 issue. So those are some of the reasons why we need B12. B12 can be absorbed through the gut, but you have to have there's a compound in the gut called intrinsic factor. You need to mix stomach acid and intrinsic factor to absorb B12 efficiently in the gut. And some people, when they get older, they completely lose the ability to make intrinsic factor.
Older is what? 40?
Well, older
60?
is older. As you get older, some people in their 30s and 40s start to lose this, but it declines. So that person, when they're in their 30s and 40s, they still might be able to absorb pretty well, but it's going down. And when they get to be 70, it's 0. They might not make any intrinsic factor any longer. With that said, with 0 intrinsic factor in your system, you can still absorb 4% of the vitamin B12 that you consume orally. So think about that. If you consume 25 times the RDA of B12, you're going to absorb 100% of RDA, even if you have no intrinsic factor.
Right.
So that's why if you're taking oral supplementation, you just need to take high levels. There's no real toxicity of taking high levels of B12. So rather than having to take B12 shots once a month and then your levels get great and you feel good and then they decline, why not take high dose of B12 in between those shots, and you might never have to take them again because you might be able to maintain your level by taking a nice B12 supplement.
Let's also mention when you take B vitamins that you must take it with food.
You're going to absorb it better.
Yeah, it's important for people to know that. Now let's get into sources. Sources of B vitamins. Not necessarily one in particular. You can mention that, but sources of high B vitamins.
I've got them all laid out.
Go ahead. I know you like getting laid.
Vegetables. Start eat your vegetables.
Nobody's going to do it.
That's obvious. I mean, vegetables are loaded with a lot of them. Not all of them, though. Some of the B vitamins are not found in vegetables.
Come on, so you're telling me I can't just eat all of the regular baked potatoes I want?
I didn't say potatoes.
You said vegetables.
Okay. Green leafy vegetables.
See?
Let's say you want folic acid. Excuse me, folate.
Yeah.
Folic acid is a synthetic form of folate. If you want folate, the reason it's called folate is because it's rich in foliage. Green leafy things, spinach, kale, things like that, romaine lettuce. That's where you get your folate. And you get a lot of the other B vitamins from green leafy vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds.
I don't like that word.
Legumes?
Legumes.
Legumes. lentils, chickpeas.
Why can't we say legumes?
You can say legumes,
But I don't think
tomato.
that's right.
I don't even know what's right.
Go ahead.
Well, you lost
I
me.
interrupted you.
Beans.
Animal products, beans, egg products, or
nuts.
eggs rather.
Eggs do have a lot of B vitamins. The yolk is rich in certain B vitamins. It's rich in biotin when it's raw. The white is rich in biotin also, but you can't absorb it unless the white is cooked.
Wow, I put a free-range raw egg in my protein shake every day.
Okay,
and I don't do that for the B vitamins. I don't do that for the protein as much as I do it for the B vitamins and the biotin.
There's a product in egg whites before it's cooked called Avidin. It's preventing you from absorbing B vitamin, the biotin, which is B8, from all of or B7, like I said before.
Yeah.
It's preventing you from absorbing B biotin from all of your other sources if you don't cook the egg white. So cook the egg white.
Why can't? So then can't I? Hold on. I'm not going to cook. Enough time for that. Nobody has time to cook anymore. So can't I just take the yolk and put it in my?
Yes, you can.
See? Make it easy, Webster.
But people want the egg white for protein.
I'm not people.
If you want protein,
I have
from the
enough
egg
protein
white,
from my protein shake.
You do. But if you want egg whites for protein, you need to be cooking the egg whites.
Okay.
That is important because you'll not only not absorb the biotin that's in the egg white,
Yeah.
you won't absorb it from the yolk or from all the other foods you eat because that stuff that binds it so strongly.
We don't have time to do all the and we'll get into it right now a little bit. The supplements. Can someone just take any B complex supplement? And because when you go to the store, you'll see B6 and B12 and all these other isolated Bs, if you will, versus a complex. Isn't it better to take a complex of all of the Bs, first of all? Second of all, are all supplements alike when it comes to B? And I know the answer,
Absolutely
but
not.
we really don't have a whole lot of time. So break that down.
Yes, start with a complex, either a multivitamin that's got a real high dose complex of B vitamins. Sometimes you need extra B folate and extra B12 on top of that because you might be having a certain type of anemia. But start with the complex. You don't want to just pick and choose, especially if you don't know exactly which ones you need.
And on a supplement, do we take it the way it's recommended specifically for this show, for B vitamins? Do we take it that way? Or since we know the masses deal with chronic inflammation, should we double it?
It depends if you're taking it as a multivitamin, multi-mineral complex or just a B complex. Like you said earlier, you can double up on your B complex if you're under a lot of stress.
Right.
But I wouldn't want people doubling up on their multivitamin, multi-mineral if it has a bunch of standard vitamin A.
No, I'm talking
iron or
just
something
B
like
vitamins
that.
complex
Yeah.
supplement today.
And look at the vitamin that you sell on your website. Look through the B complex. Those are the dosages you should be getting, and
Right.
a lot of those it's not even close to 100%. It's much more like 1,000% or 2,000 or 3,000% RDA.
Right.
Those are the dosages we need of a lot of these B vitamins in general, and then you might need more of certain ones on top of that.
Well, that's what I do. You know, I use the supplement that I have, the multi on my site,
Just like your baseline.
as my baseline,
Yeah.
but I also take 3 capsules of a complex B because I know how my lifestyle is. It's not bad, but I do have some stress. So I know I feel better with that.
Right.
Anyway, so let's talk about, coming up next, are all supplements, particularly B supplements, on the shelf the same? All right, or some more damaging than others? Dr. Webster and George DeJohn coming up next. 746 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 754 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DeJohn. Train Station Fitness Show with Dr. Webster next to me. We're talking about being deficient in B vitamins and how that impacts everyone's life. I don't care who you are. But are you aware enough to recognize how you're impacted? Do you deal with depression, anxiety, ADD, trouble sleeping? In addition to that, we talked about some of the food sources and of B and some of the deficiencies that are caused, or what causes the deficiencies, certain foods and alcohol and something like that.
Along that line, I didn't mention, but B12 you can't get from vegetable products at all. I don't know if I mentioned that.
No.
Animal products only. If you're a vegan, if you're not supplementing with B12, you are deficient in B12 and you're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
You're going to have anemia and you're going to have neurological issues. You've got to get the B12 somehow. Animal products or supplementation are the only way.
Okay, so are all B supplements created equal? You go into a store, you're overwhelmed, you see three shelves of B vitamins with several different companies. How do you know which one's the best? Can you get it retail? Do you need professional? Go.
Well,
we got 5 seconds.
We already mentioned the dosages. Look on yours so people get an idea of the true dosages. 100% RDA doesn't mean anything. Folate, B9. Start at that when you look at a B complex or a multivitamin that has B complex in it. Start with your folate. If it says folic acid, that's synthetic. Your body has to convert synthetic folic acid into folate, which is the natural form. Some people can't do that very well, and folic acid builds up in their system and causes increased cancer risk. We don't need to increase your cancer risk by taking B vitamins. That's ridiculous. B12 sometimes is bound to cyanide. Cyanocobalamin is a form that's in a lot of cheap vitamins. I don't recommend cyanide in your multivitamin either. I'd recommend a hydroxy or a methyl.
Oh, sorry,
B12.
are you saying a buildup of cyanide over a period of years isn't healthy for us,
Right.
Webster?
Of course not.
What's wrong with you?
We need to combine our vitamins with our minerals. They work together. Just like I said, magnesium is required for thiamine to bind properly. It's the same with all of the minerals and all of the vitamins. They all work together with each other. So we want to make sure we get multivitamin, multi-mineral also. Niacin causes flushing, high blood sugar. High blood sugar, I didn't mention that. It can drive you into diabetes if you take regular niacin. So yeah, it'll lower cholesterol levels, but it'll give you diabetes.
I learned something today. I love that.
Stop taking niacin. Niacinamide or nicotinamide would be the niacin or the B3 version that you would want to take.
So take niacinamide.
Yeah, and other than that, they're pretty standard. Riboflavin is riboflavin. B6 is B6, although you can get an active form, which is nice, but not necessary. Thiamine is thiamine. So those are your basics. Look at those things that I just mentioned. If any of those things, if there's folic acid in it, don't buy it. That's the first one you want to look at. And you don't want to do the cyano.
What if it says folate in parentheses folic acid?
That's folic acid. That's the form of folate they're using, which is the synthetic form.
Well, sometimes you'll just see folic acid.
Which is synthetic form.
Right, but if you see folic acid, aren't they trying to give people a reference to let them know it's folate? Because I thought folate was the
folate is the true form.
Right, but what I'm saying is if it says folate, then next to it in parentheses folic acid, aren't they saying that it's folate in there, not folic acid?
No.
Just giving you a reference?
No, they're not.
Okay.
What they're saying is the form of folate they're using is the synthetic folic acid.
Okay.
They're using the synthetic. It should not say folic acid on there at all.
Okay. Ricky, what you got? T-Box.
What up?
Craig, what are you doing? You're not on the boards. He's about to screw up the show.
I can't screw it up. There's 3 minutes left, and we can't hear anything, Craig. If you don't have headphones on, it doesn't matter. So all your comedic genius is wasted.
It's all lost.
Nothing.
hear it.
We got nothing.
Sorry, buddy.
See you. Bye-bye. Take care.
He'll just sit there and play with it.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
What the audience can hear, probably.
Hey, so, okay, so I heard that part at the end. So I get vitamins from you, Doc. So when I go to the, general store, and it seems like the big deal now is 2-for-1s. Now I sound really loud. Sound there's feedback or something. What are you doing?
Idiot.
Yeah, it's not working, Craig. Sorry. I know.
It's not coming out of the monitors, Craig. It doesn't matter. It's only coming out of the headphones, so we can't hear your goofiness.
So they always have these 2-for-1s, buy one get one free, and all that, the Nature's Way, and all those ones. Are they really that bad?
Well, yeah. You want your folic acid to build up. That really does. If you can't metabolize your folic acid.
I mean, does that particular vitamin brand have it, or is that just any generic vitamin brand will have it?
I'm going to estimate that 95 to 99% of the vitamins out there use folic acid, which is the synthetic form.
It's cheaper. You ever hear me give my,
much cheaper.
and I do this when I do my, I think I did this on the show years ago, but when I do my speaking engagements, I talk a lot about, and I have my extreme ways of speaking. If you go to one of these big warehouses where they have all these cheaper products, and you buy 1 billion pills for $1, and you think you're getting over on them, well, guess what? Not only are they getting over on you, but the way they do that is not only is it not beneficial, but it can be damaging because they also use fake vitamin E, which we know can cause cancer. So it's better to pay for the professional grade supplements that are more money, sometimes much more money, to absorb them all, to help you with your goal of being healthy, than it is to work against it. Otherwise, why are you taking it? It's like people who have
I gotcha.
salmon, you love salmon, don't eat it unless it's wild caught salmon.
Yeah, don't eat
If you're
farm
eating
raised.
it because you like salmon, eat it, but if you're eating it to be healthy, then don't eat it.
Right.
That's
All
the
right.
goal.
Did you hear the talk about the B12? Remember a couple months ago you were talking about B12 shots, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Yeah.
did you hear the talk about that?
No.
In between shots, you can take pretty high dosages, even if you don't absorb it, and you can still get enough B12 so that you don't have to constantly be taking B12 shots, and that way you feel good all the time, not just when you take the B12 shots.
You know, if anybody's listened to the show long enough, there's no way you can ask the question. I guess you can, but ask the question: what is the best exercise for this? Usually for fat loss in a specific area. What's the best food or supplementation for that? It just can't be done because that's like somebody who writes a diet book. You can't do it. You can, but it's not for everybody because you're deficient in something that I'm not deficient in and vice versa and everybody in this room. So we would take different supplements or different amounts of each supplement. Why are you going and just buying supplements? Why are you going and just,
Okay, I got
You
one.
feel
I
good?
got one for you.
ready?
Rick and I have a really good friend who had to had a surgery. Not important, not a big deal, but he's extremely anemic. So now he's taking iron supplements, and the iron supplements are making him sick.
Because he's not taking the right type of iron. He needs to be taking chelated iron, not straight iron. Regular iron will
Chelated
make you
iron.
sick as
Chile
can
looks
be.
like chelated,
Yeah,
C-H.
CH. Yeah.
So he
It will
asked
make you
me
terribly sick.
to ask you off the air, but what the hell?
What the hell?
He's your good friend. Who cares?
Yeah, nobody has any idea who
What's
he
his
is.
name?
Yeah.
Bob.
Might as well go all out.
That stuff, that straight iron,
But-
will ruin your gut. It causes free radical damage, so it can cause
so his
cardiovascular
question was,
damage.
what's the best food he could eat right now that would give him a really high dose of iron?
First of all, I
from
want to say
natural
this:
foods?
he might not be low in iron at all.
Yeah, it might be a vitamin B
It could
issue.
be a B vitamin issue that's causing the anemia, and not the iron. It might be iron, or it might not. But he needed
He
to
had
differentiate.
he had a situation where he was losing a lot of blood, and his doctor even said it was.
Okay. If that's what it is,
But doesn't mean. But
Animal
that doesn't
blood.
mean that there's not a B issue.
well, it might right, but it certainly would be an iron issue. 'Cause
Right.
They probably tested ferritin and saw that it was low iron that was contributing to this.
Well, back in the day, spinach used to be a big iron.
Spinach, but you don't absorb your iron. It's got a lot of iron, but you don't absorb it very well from iron. You absorb iron properly from protein sources. Red meats would be the best way to get your iron levels up.
Oh, that won't be a
Even-
problem for him.
Will not be a problem for
He doesn't
him.
eat red meat.
He doesn't?
No.
Maybe we're talking about a different guy.
There's that.
Never mind.
Chelated iron will not
And you're
bother.
the guy you're thinking of, 330 pounds. He ain't deficient in
No,
anything.
I'm not thinking of him. I'm not thinking of him.
He probably is. That's why he's 330 pounds.
But the chelated iron won't bother him at all.
Okay.
For some people, 2 or 3 capsules of regular iron will cause them to get sick. You could take a whole bottle of chelated iron; it won't cause any of those problems.
Not recommended though.
Not recommended, but it won't hurt you.
All right, so I have a question. So the vitamins that the array vitamins you subscribed for me, okay?
Right.
How come there wasn't a multiple? in there?
Prescribed.
I thought you were already taking a multi.
I am, but
That's why I didn't do that on top.
Oh,
of it.
okay.
And we can switch you to a better multi if you
Are
want.
you having
but-
your gummy multi?
no,
We
no
just added
gummies.
specific
Flintstones.
things.
But it's
specific-
I
fairly
take the
generic.
Flintstones.
Yeah,
It's
specific for
it's
you.
like a it's you know it's like a Centrum or something like that. You know, one of those.
Yeah, you're better off getting the one from Webster then.
Yeah, because we've got all this stuff taken care of. All the stuff I mentioned, plus the vitamin E that George mentioned, it's already taken care of. It's just standard in our.
Since I've been dieting, I've taken a multivitamin. I've heeded your advice, and I've gone to the right store to buy it, and it's
Good.
really, really expensive because it's natural food vitamins.
Good.
And you got to take 3 pills a day. It says, and it is so freaking expensive to take that multivitamin.
But isn't it better? Like I said before, professional grade supplements are the most expensive. But isn't it better to know that you're going to absorb all of the supplement and that you'll gain benefit
Yeah, but you know what the
from it and
downside
not
is,
just
though?
wasting
It makes my pee real yellow, so I figure I ain't saving anything.
The downside is, as we were talking off air, you don't notice a drastic
You never
magic
will.
pill change. So it's hard in your mind. It's hard to justify the extra money
Right.
when you don't feel any different.
I've
Some
often
people do though. Some people do when they're real deficient in B vitamins. They'll notice
notice
a
an
difference
energy
in
change.
energy levels.
in the gym or just throughout the day.
You don't
Yeah.
have any blatant symptoms though of low anything.
Right.
I mean, you had that one issue with the kidneys.
Yeah.
But you aren't going to feel those go away either. So you're
No,
not really going to feel anything because you don't have a symptom that's giving you problems.
But
If
I'm
you
talking
do,
about people in general, though. You know, when you
You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait for something big to happen.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when people justify cost with
Perceived
performance
value, right.
and perceived value. So if you take something that inherently is better for you, but you don't feel any different, it's hard to equate those two. It's hard to justify the extra cost.
but do you
That's
feel
what
better
Craig's
after you eat a
saying.
big salad versus a fried meal? Necessarily,
Yeah, I don't know.
You might not. You might
Yeah.
not feel healthier after you eat a salad, but you're still doing it, and you should do it for maintenance. It's not to change your symptoms or the way you feel necessarily. It's to make sure that you don't feel bad 20 years from now.
Yeah,
So you
I
don't
agree with that.
crash.
I
I'm just
wouldn't
talking
even
about-
go that far out.
Whatever. A year
Yeah.
from now, 10 years, whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go that
But it's
far
just maintaining the current health that you have. That's just as important as fixing your problems.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying
Yeah.
when people are saying that here's something that's
Yeah.
$100, here's something that's $12, and I'll try the $100 one. And at the end, I don't
Right.
know, I don't feel like.
But if you do
I
become
said my teeth real
educated,
yellow. That's about it.
if you do become
Yes,
educated
you're into
about
that.
it, like you guys do on the show, and
Yeah.
what Webster and I talk about,
Right.
and I've even said this with protein. You see a lot of these proteins that say 50 grams of protein in each serving.
Right.
Well, there's a couple of things to know. One is you cannot absorb 50 grams of protein. It can't be done. 24 grams. So you're wasting it.
Right.
Now, let's say that's if you have a 100% good, high quality raw whey protein.
Right.
But you don't. Not in any retail store anywhere in America do you have that. That's number one. Number two, the way the protein is made is not something that's going to have all the benefits to it to absorb into your body. Therefore, you're wasting it even if you could absorb
Right.
50 grams of protein.
Right.
So isn't it better to know, while you may pay even double the price for the right protein, one that your body will absorb all of, isn't it better to know you'll absorb it all, you'll gain the benefits from it? Yes, you'll indirectly get fat loss because you'll put on some muscle and blah, 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 versus wasting it.
Well, theory, you're right. I'm not disagreeing.
No,
with
I know
you.
what you're
I'm just
saying, but
talking
it's
about public
important to
perception, that's all.
understand
It's
that.
hard
And
to
if you're not
You know,
educated,
this is like cars.
Yeah.
You know, you
Well,
buy
not
a
like cars.
$100,000 car versus a $30,000 car. You want to see a perceived difference.
yeah, and what
that's what's
not Webster,
difficult.
what Jeremy Clarkson would say is that the other day he tested an R8, not the other day, it's an old one. He tested an R8 when it had the new Lamborghini engine in it. I
Versus
think it was
a Vega?
09. No, versus the $100,000 Z1, or they
Uh-huh.
call ZR1
Right.
Corvette.
Right.
The Corvette had more horsepower, was faster off the line. However, try to turn and make it steer.
Right.
So when
Depends
you're
what
looking
you
at
want out of it.
what's your goal? What's
Yeah.
there's their perceived value.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Good comparison, right?
This segment would have been so much better if I could have run the board.
Well, none of you guys wear headphones, including you.
I do, because you make me.
You didn't bring them.
Wait, let's sit back.
No, there's nothing.
Because you make me.
Cat fight?
Oh, during the week, I'm his boss.
Yeah.
And on Saturday mornings, I am definitely his bitch. There's no question.
Dave, got that? Did you get that, Dave? Okay. That's our new show open.